Hey guys! If this is your first time to my channel, hello and welcome. My name is Emily and today I'm bringing you guys a review on this bad boy right here, the Viseart Petit Pro 2 palette. I ordered this guy off of Sephora.com when it went up for sale last month. This guy is $30 and typically the Viseart shadows usually retail for about $80 for a full palette, and then they have the little theory palettes that I believe are $50 to $60. You get 6 full-size shades in those palettes. These guys are actually a lot smaller than the original Viseart palettes, hence why they're called the Petit Pro palettes. You get 0.8 grams per shadow in this palette and you can pop them out. As you can see here, there's this little divot in there and I could literally lift it out with my fingernail, as you can see. But these guys are pretty dang tiny. Now since this retails for $30, that comes down to $3.75 per shadow. Now like a typical MAC shadow or a Colourpop shadow like this is 1.5 grams, and as you can see you get a significantly less amount in these bad boys. But the full-size palettes are a lot more expensive than these, so you do save a little bit of money and you get to try out the formula. Now let's go ahead and break this palette down here based on my pros and my cons. So the pros are that you get a lot less product for a smaller amount of money. So if you aren't willing to pay $80 for an eyeshadow palette and just shell out your money like that, then you get to try the formula and see if you like the Viseart formula without having to just make the full commitment and just throw your money at an $80 eyeshadow palette. Not everyone wants to spend $80 on makeup, which is completely understandable, and I think that their palettes are super expensive. But if you are not already aware, Viseart is a pro beauty line which is sold at Sephora, I believe Muse Beauty Pro, as well as Beauty Bay. Stephanie Nicole, who does beauty videos here on YouTube, I'm sure you've heard of her. She is the queen of reviews. Girl knows how to do a good review, but she is obsessed with Viseart and she works with the team a lot and she's affiliated with the company, so she is a huge fan of Viseart. Now for me personally, I have one of their palettes. I have the Warm Neutrals palette, and that palette is really blendable, very pigmented, very smooth, but the color selection in my opinion sucks. It is literally 50 shades of beige, but for some people that's probably a good thing. For me specifically, with my crazy colors, I am not impressed by beige, but the shadows themselves are very good. Now I haven't made a Viseart purchase since that palette because nothing's really intrigued me that much. I do like the colorful palette and I like the dark mattes palette, but those are so expensive. So I've just been kind of holding off on the brand. So when I saw that they were going to come out with a smaller palette, I was really excited. I thought, great, I can try out these new shades and I know the formula is good and I don't have to spend 80 bucks to get a new Viseart palette and to really enjoy the formula. So I was really excited when I saw this on Trend Mood. Now I have some pros and cons, so let's go over the pros first. The pros are that this is nice because you can try out the formula without giving up $80. This is only $30, and if you have been interested in Viseart as a brand, you can try it out without having to give away a bunch of your money. The other nice thing is that the color selection is very pretty. Now for me personally, I would change a few things, but I'm sure most people look at this and think that it's a very nice color scheme. I looked at this at first and thought it was a very nice color scheme as well. But upon testing these shades out, I do have some gripes with them, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Now another pro is that the packaging is very small, very travel friendly. Now personally for me, I don't go anywhere, so I don't really care if it's small or huge. I'm not bringing this with me because I'm not traveling anywhere, but people who travel all the time always want, lighter items to take with them, and the packaging is very sturdy. This is what it looks like when you first get it. It has this little flap right here, and basically it's magnetic, so you can lift up the flap, pull this guy down, you have a nice mirror in the middle, and then you have the palette down below. So you have a decent amount of shades in a very compact, kind of portable case, if you will. Another pro is that these shadows blend beautifully. Just like the original formula, they are very blendable, and once you actually start using your blending brush and blending on the eyeballs, it takes just a couple seconds to get a nice seamless blend. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the cons now. These colors do not go together on the eyeballs in my opinion. I am obsessed with hot coral shades, so when I saw this specific shade drew me in and I knew I had to have it. This shade is pretty good. It's not my favorite coral shade that I have, but it's pretty good. It's not as neon and as vibrant as I personally would want it, but I really like the bright shades. This one is more of a muted coral shade, and I do have this on my eyes today, as well as the Clionadh blush palette that I reviewed in a previous video. I have them mixed together on my eyes. When you look at this palette, you think that the purple is going to go really well with the peaches and the coral shade, and I think that it would have been really, really good if this was a warm toned, kind of plummy burgundy purple color. This is a really, really cool toned, deepened, like blackened purple color. Now for me personally, the way I have used this is using the lighter shade as the transition color down here, the coral shade as the more kind of upper crease color. The main focus of where I want my color is usually in the crease with the eye looks that I specifically like to do. And then I deepened everything up with the purple. Now, when I put the purple onto the brighter coral shade, instead of being an individual shade, it mixed with the coral shade and made it look like a bruise. I don't know if that's just because of the shadow. I don't know if these two colors specifically do not pair well together, but I have used purples with corals many times and it has not looked like a bruise. This looked like a bruise. It blended so well, but the color itself, after blending everything together, muddied together and looked kind of like dirt and like a bruise on my eye. So I'm not really trying to look like I have a bruise on my eye. I mean, I don't really know who is. I really think that a more warm toned purple would have gone with these other colors better. Now that's just my opinion. I just personally could not get that to work for me specifically, and I have used purples with corals many times, like I said, so I don't know if it's just this shade, maybe the undertone just doesn't mix well with this specific purple, but you think they would have thought of that before placing all of the colors together. You know, you really want to choose colors that have undertones that support each other, because yes, corals and peaches and browns and purples do go together, but the undertones can actually really change the actual outcome of the eye look itself. I'm sure that you guys have heard of the term color theory before. And that's basically when you want to choose colors that all kind of go with each other and complement each other. And while purples and corals and peaches actually do go together well, if you have a cool toned purple mixed with like a warm toned coral or a warm toned orange or yellow, it actually can turn grayish or brownish. And that was one of the big flaws with the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette, is that the color scheme was really pretty, but once you actually started to mix everything together, everything turned to like a muddy gray color. And that's just an example of when the colors might go together, but the undertones, or you know, one being warm, one being cool, might not actually mix together, if that makes sense. Now, as far as the shimmers go, they are surprisingly dull. I will show you in the swatches. Some of them are good, but the majority of them are very, very dull in color and in pigment and in shine. Now, I know that when most people are going for a shimmery shade, they want something that's impactful, especially if you're paying a very, very large amount of money for the shadow. You want something that's going to show up and be blinding and be beautiful and catch the light really, really beautifully. These guys just don't do it for me. And for me specifically, the shimmers themselves aren't different enough in color for me to really care about them. They're all very, very similar in color. We have these mattes down here that are actually pretty different and unique in color, but these shimmers are all just like a tinge different. Like this one's like a taupey purple, this one's a more bronzy purple, this one's a more red-based purple, and then this one's more of a peachy, pinky purple. But they're not different enough to make a difference on the eyes, and I'm really confused why they chose to go so monochromatic with the shimmers, but so different with the mattes, because I just don't get it. I just don't get why they would put very, very similar shades in this palette. So I just want to show you guys for reference how small these pans actually are. So this is a dime, an US American dime, and I don't know if you can see, but it's like the size of a dime. And you're paying $30 for shadows that are the size of a dime. Not even a penny. I mean, come on. That is tiny. My necklace was making me super itchy, so I had to take that puppy off. So let's keep on going here. Like I was saying, these are just very small, and I feel like $30 is a lot to charge for that small of pan. Now I understand that Viseart is a pro brand, and I understand that these are high quality shadows, but for me specifically, I don't think that they are up to par with the other Viseart shadows that I have tried personally. These are decent, but they're not the most amazing thing in the world, and for that expensive of a price for that little of product, these better be damn good. My favorite shades in the palette are the peachy shade over here, as well as the coral shade. The peachy shade is not as pigmented as you think it would be. When I see a shade like this, I expect it to be full pigment. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of picky with my shadows, and I really want to just have full pigment and full blendability. This is very blendable, but it is so sheer. The reason why this is one of my favorite shades in the palette, even though it is so sheer, is that you can actually use this to really buff and blend out your crease work and make everything really seamless. I call these eraser shades, and I think that these are absolutely amazing if you have gone too far up in the crease and you have put too much color everywhere and you need to just tone it down to look more blended and more seamless. This guy will be your best friend for that. So I really like that shade for that reason. But when I first saw this palette, I did not think that that was going to be this type of shade. I thought this was going to be a nice, bright, peachy transition, and it's more of just an eraser shade. But I do like it. My second favorite in the palette is this hot coral. I did touch on it earlier, but it is a nice coral shade. It's not the most vibrant, it's not the most neon, but it is very blendable, and it's very true to color in the pan. It's a deeper coral. I think that it's nice if you are going to bring in another palette and use some lighter shades and some peachy shades, maybe even some neon coral shades. This would be a nice deepening color if you don't want to use something that's as deep as, say, a purple or a brown or a red. This is a nice deep coral shade that can be used for that specific purpose. So I did want to bring out some dupes that I have of a few of the shades in here. I don't have dupes for everything, but I have dupes for the peachy shade, the coral shade, and the purple shade as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just swatch those out on my arm here. So we'll do the peachy shade, the coral shade, and then the purple shade. So let's go peachy, coral, and purple. You look at that purple, it's not even that great by any means, and I always hear people talk about how amazing the purple shades are from the Viseart palettes. So I'm just a little bit confused on what they did with this Petit Pro palette, but I don't think that this one is necessarily as good as the other Viseart palettes that they have to offer. But the first dupe that I have here for the peachy shade right down here, which is very light and sheer like I said earlier, is Secrets by Colourpop. Now this one is going to be a little bit more pigmented, but it is the same type of shade, that kind of light, peachy, kind of flesh toned color. And we'll go ahead and swatch it just right above. See, this one is a lot more pigmented and a little bit more pinky, but I think it's pretty close. Dupe for the coral shade that I have here is Sura from Devinah. This one is one of my favorite shades to ever exist in the history of eyeshadows. And that is saying a lot because I freaking love eyeshadows. This one is so good. But let's go ahead and swatch her right over here. Oh, that is an awful swatch. One more time here. There we go. As you can see, this one is way more pigmented. I think that it's still really blendable. I think the Viseart one is a little bit easier to blend. I think because it's a little bit more sheer, it's a little bit easier to blend once it's on the eyes, and it's pretty buildable. This one's very pigmented straight off the bat. It blends easy, but it's not as easy to blend as the Viseart one. But still a very similar shade. It's almost an exact dupe. If you already have this in your collection, then you already have that hot coral shade from the palette. And the last dupe that I have for you guys here is for the purple shade in the palette. And we have Looxi Cosmetics La Di Da, which is from their Dollhouse collection. So let's go ahead and swatch. And we'll go right above here. This one's pretty sheer too. So we'll just do a double finger swatch there. And that's basically what it looks like. It's a little bit more warm toned, and that's why I chose this color to show you guys, because I think that if you mixed this color with the Sura by Devinah, or even with the color from the Viseart Pro palette, I don't think that this would look like a bruise. Can you see the difference? This one's very cool toned, and when it mixes with these warmer shades, it does turn pretty muddy looking and very bruise-like. Now this guy is a lot more warm toned. It's almost kind of like a deep grape color, and this works really nicely when blended with these warmer shades. So I don't know what they were doing not putting a color like this in. It was kind of the downfall of the palette, to be honest, for me. Now I'm going to show you guys some close-ups. I'm going to build the swatches up. I think I'm going to just do 3 layers. This way you can really see what the colors are and see how similar they are. Okay guys, so here are the swatches. They only actually took 2 layers of building up to get the true color. On the right side we have the Viseart Petit Pro 2, and on the left side of the shades we have the Dupes. So as you can see, the colors are very similar, but I think that the colors in the Dupes are actually better than the colors in the Viseart palette, but the blendability of the Viseart palette is slightly better than the Dupes. But if you already have something like this in your collection, you probably don't need this. So my final thoughts on the Viseart Petit Pro 2 palette is that if you already have shades like this, you don't need this. It's not their true original formula. I firmly believe that they changed the formula for this guy, and I think that the pan shades are just so small, and it's just not necessary in your collection if you already own stuff like this. If you want a specific shade from this palette, it's easily dupable. I showed you the shades that I had in my collection, and the shimmers seem pretty easily dupable, and then everyone has a basic matte deep brown. So do I regret buying this? I would say yes. I like the dupes that I have better because the color is a lot better and the saturation is better, and I'm okay with blending a little bit more if the saturation and the color is there. These guys, like I've said 1,000 times in this review, are very blendable, but the color isn't really there for me. For me personally, I am just unimpressed with this palette. When I was looking at the reviews for this guy last night, just to see what other people thought, a lot of people in the reviews on Sephora.com had very similar things to say and were also disappointed, so I don't think that it's just a me thing. I think that this palette kind of missed the mark. So with that being said, I would rate this guy a 2.5 out of 5. With that being said, I would rate this guy a 2.5 out of 5. I know it's kind of harsh, but I just expected way more, and I do not think that this is worth $30. I think this is worth $18 to $22, and I think that's still pretty expensive considering that you get a dime-sized amount of product. I'm gonna still use it and incorporate it into my looks, but I'm not really thrilled about it, and I'm not really excited to reach for this guy, especially because I have been finding a lot of really good products lately, and I was just really shocked that the Viseart palette was not one of them. So this was a letdown for me. I hope that this review helped you in some way. I hope that if you were looking at it and you were on the fence, that you're able to make your decision. And if you want some of those dupes, let me tell you, they are amazing, and I will have them linked down below. I do hope that you consider subscribing to this channel. We have all sorts of makeup goodness happening here right on this channel every single week. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. I hope that you are having an absolutely awesome day wherever you are, and I hope to see you next time. Bye! If I seem really out of it for this video, and I just filmed the Clionadh blush trio video before this, I forgot my contacts at my mom's, and I can't see a thing. And I don't have a viewfinder, so I'm really just freeballing it right now. Like, it's a shot in the dark for me. Yeah, I'm blind as a bat. Anyway, bye!